What's up, BCI fam, and happy 2024. It's pretty crazy to say that it is 2024. This year crept up on us. But here we are in a new year, and the first podcast of the year, me and Andy thought it would be a good idea to talk about how to really set yourself in line for a good year. We're going to talk a little bit about our challenge and a little bit more about why we do what we do, why we believe what we believe, and why we think that is the best route, especially around these New Year's resolutions that most people tend to fail on.
Yep.
So on that topic, Andy, where do you want to dive in first? Because we almost just went full podcast mode before we got mic'd
right.
up.
I know we started talking about some good stuff that we wanted to capture. I mean, I think what I want to start this off with is that I think everybody right now has a great opportunity to get really clear on what their goals are for 2024 as it relates to their health and fitness. The New Year's resolution thing is a great opportunity to do that. But what I've noticed over the years is people have kind of, they've really kind of downed the idea of a New Year's resolution. And the data and statistics are super clear. Like, it's not really effective beyond a couple weeks. But that's in a certain population. And I think what keeps those people from accomplishing their resolution is a lack of clarity. Like, they don't really know what it looks like in action and what's required. And then the accountability of somebody else helping them through the tough times. Mm-hmm. And then overwhelming themselves with enough evidence that they can make a mistake, get back on the horse the next day, and everything will be just fine. Mm-hmm. So that's a hard thing for somebody who's not in a facility like ours to sort through. And it's challenging for the people in our own facility.
Especially you think about what most gyms look like this time of year. You walk into a gym, I'm brand new to this. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to figure it out. You walk in, there's 5,000 people, there's no room to do anything, and all of a sudden you're just like, I don't want any part of this. And that's a big deterrent in itself. One, not knowing what to do. Two, not having someone to do it with.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think there's some value there for our members listening to and anybody that they know that might be on this New Year's resolution thing. Goal number one this time of year is to show up. Yeah. Like, that's it. People start worrying about way too many things. But if you've lacked consistency in your approach to going to the gym and working on your health and fitness, that's the number one wrong we have to right. We have to commit to a certain amount of days at a certain amount of times. So that would be the first piece of advice that I would give people is you've got to match up your commitment to the goal first. You don't want to try to do that as you're going along. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, from now until March, look at it like, we live in a 90-day world here in our business, and I think that's valuable for people to do with their fitness too. It's like, okay, over the next 90 days, I'm going to commit to X amount of days, and I'm going to be 90% compliant. That at least gives you a shot to show up and work on your health. Mm-hmm. And the other components, what I think will really help people, and this is a shameless plug, we've built into the 42 Strong Challenge. So the clarity of where you're going and what's required, and then the right things and the right amount done over the right amount of time. Mm-hmm. And 42 Strong, we believe, is the way to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to dive into much of our challenge for any of the new people listening, or?
Yeah, I think talking in detail about the challenge
give them the cliff notes of
would
it,
have
what
value.
to expect.
Yeah, so
and maybe start off with why we.
Yeah, that's what
when we first started, a challenge wasn't a thing.
Yeah, we weren't going to do them. Like, challenges were
not. It took us a while to really find what fit our belief policy with the challenge, just because of how commonly they're misused.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe that's helpful, and I did this one other time at an intro for our challenge. But kind of the history of the 6-week challenge is it's less about your fitness, and it's more about an acquisition strategy for gyms. And, listen, this is the truth. We're running a business, so we have to have strategies to get people in the door. But those strategies, I believe, should be congruent with what's actually best for them, right? And it should be a win-win. In the way that the original 6-week challenge was proposed, there was this kind of bait and switch model where they said, hey, this is a free challenge. And then they get you on the books, and then you show up and they reposition things. And they go, hey, it's not really free. Nothing in life is free. We're going to ask you to put, a $500 bet on yourself. And if you lose 20 pounds, we will give you your money back, or we'll forward that money into the next challenge. Well, what a lot of people realize is if they just run challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge, that was a really good way to get a lot of money up front for a business. But the problem was the only way that that gym succeeds is if you actually fail, because that's the only way they keep the money. And then I would look at how people ran these challenges and was like, wow, this is really terrible. Like, okay, get somebody to work out.
Until the intent behind that's not truly to help the person that's looking for the change.
You know, and I try, at this stage of my life, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
But what happens is people dive into the thing that that feels the best.
Yeah.
And that's making the money. For a gym owner who's struggling, these are the people that used to run 6-week challenge. They'd be struggling, they'd run this, they'd get a bunch of money in cash in the door, and they'd feel really good about it. But then they would forget that you're not a marketing and sales service, you're a gym, and you have to deliver training and really good training results. And people would forget that because, again, these challenges were built around just kind of like randomness. There was no really good training program. You would get a very restrictive type of diet to follow. And it was like, hey, man, good luck. Get in where you fit in. And a lot of people failed. A lot of people exhausted this 6-week challenge thing. And a couple of years back, as I saw that happening, like people were kind of like giving up on the idea of it, was like, okay, we've got an opportunity here to create a product that is actually a win-win for everybody. It checks all the boxes of what somebody needs. So we started thinking, all right, what are the major keys here to creating a transformation? And if anybody's read my emails or heard me talk, I talk about this all the time. It's access, association, and accountability. So how can we leverage those things? We need to give people the access to expert advice that will actually allow them to transform their body. We need to associate them with other people who are on that journey, because pain shared is pain divided, and we always do better when we're working in a group. And then we need the accountability piece. How are we going to hold people's feet to the fire and remind them of why this is so important to them when they're struggling? So we started with that. Okay, well, what is access? Like, what do they really need? Well, there are a few things that we hammer into your head. And these are really the only things that you need to focus on, okay? The one thing we've not always included in the challenge is sleep, but I'm going to start there, and we will do an entire podcast on sleep because of how important this is. The next is your strength training, okay, like actually lifting weights. This is so important for people. No matter how much they like to yoga, Zumba, or whatever, if you don't strength train, the older you get, the more fragile you get. That's just how it goes. You need metabolic conditioning work, aerobic and anaerobic. And for us, this is where metabolic blast comes in. It fills that gap for other people who don't want to do conditioning on their own. They need to follow some type of calorie-restricted, macro-based diet or program. And that can look a lot of different ways, okay? And did I get all 5 there? What did I forget? I forgot water.
Yeah,
okay.
water.
So like water is
steps.
another...
Steps. Because you added sleep.
Yeah, how did I miss steps? I was really intentional about that. But so water for sure, and then steps. Steps are more of an indication of your activity level outside of your fitness. The nerd term for that is NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and this is one of the more important things that most people should focus on, because if you think about, you go to the gym 4 days a week, that's 4 hours that you're actually at the gym. And if that's the only time you're really active, that's not going to produce great results. So again, the things that people really need, they need great sleep, they need strength training in the gym, they need metabolic conditioning in the gym, they need activity outside of the gym, they need to drink water and follow a calorie-restricted or macro-based diet. So if we know those are what people need, why not just build a challenge around those things? So that's how we came up with the 5 rules. And then it was like, okay, well, how do we create that leverage from association? Well, you think they train with other people in the gym all day. Surely that's got to help. But when we came up with the idea of like, hey, it's a 2-for-1. Now, if you buy it, we give you a free black card to give to somebody else. Now we're leveraging that power of friendship, and we're creating bonding capital with those people. They're on a shared journey to do things. And I think that has been incredibly valuable as a whole. And then the last piece is the accountability. And it's like, okay, well, how do we really hold people accountable? number one, you can only hold somebody accountable that's actually willing to let you hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Also, human beings are masters of self-deception, and we will try to avoid accountability when we're not super dialed in. At least some people will. Sure, not everybody does. So this idea of using one of our softwares to send a text message each night allowed us to like kind of push this accountability. Like, every night we're going to ask you, did you do these things or not? And then the other piece of this that is back to what we believe in as a whole is that process drives outcome. So if you're focused on losing 20 pounds, that's not as effective on focusing and measuring the 5 things that if you do them daily will allow you to actually lose 20 pounds. So we talk about that so much that it was like, well, we got to build that into the challenge.
Yeah.
So now when you get that text message at night, we're tracking that data, and your compliance to those 5 rules is heavily weighted in your ability to win it. So part of it's body composition results, but because we know people adapt to training at different rates and speed, the fairest and the most congruent thing with our values was to add this accountability piece based on process.
Yeah.
This was not designed to be the biggest loser. If we wanted this to be the biggest loser, it's super easy to do this.
Yeah.
Like it really is. And we could just smash people and restrict them and give them a miserable life for 6 weeks, and they would probably lose more weight.
Yeah.
But we didn't want this to be about weight
And that's
loss.
probably what I like most about our challenge is, like, yes, the goal is to lose weight. Yes, it's to feel better, look better, and everything in between. But our big goal is to teach you sustainable habits that are going to get you the results that you've always wanted.
The most important habit.
Yes, the most important. Drink water. Something your mom tells you when you're a little kid. But when you're an adult, 90 ounces is impossible.
I don't like water.
Yeah. Well, suck it up, Buttercup.
Right.
And same with the steps. I know that's one thing everyone, a lot of, especially because these days everyone's working at a desk.
Yeah.
A lot of people rarely get up throughout the day. And now you drop this 10,000 steps a day on them. And you're just like, oh, that seems impossible. And
if you're going from 2,000 to 10, it feels that way.
But it comes down to planning it in your day and doing it daily, regularly. And I like how you initially said, be like, hey, just 3 10-minute walks, 2 10-minute walks. Like, start small and build on that. And I think
tie it to something else. Like tie it to a meal. Like, okay, I eat and then I go walk, or I read and then I go walk, or I take a shower and I go, like, tie it to another thing you do every day.
And I think another thing, especially this time of year, I think a lot of people with resolutions put pressure on themselves to be absolutely perfect from January 1st on. It's like, life is full of imperfections.
Yeah.
Like, if only I could live the perfect week every week.
Yeah, perfection is a standard that will make you miserable.
Yeah, and I think some people kind of use that as a little bit of a scapegoat. I wasn't perfect today. I'm gonna get back on track on Monday.
100%.
And then that becomes a very slippery slope. I've seen it. I know some clients that maybe listen to this. We've struggled with that, but we have prevailed. But
it's self-deception. It's that thing that we do to soothe ourselves and make ourselves feel better. And it's like, well, I already messed up. Like, I really kind of want that cookie. So I can justify that.
I'm gonna go hard next week.
But like, think about that that pattern. I absolutely guarantee that pattern shows up in other areas of life. And I'd argue that it's one of the major things that affects your ability to trust and believe in yourself. And this is something that I think is really important to monitor, is how often do you let yourself off the hook like that? Like, when you commit to something and you do it, you are reinforcing in your own mind, consciously and subconsciously, I'm the type of person that does the things I commit to. And if you do that over and over and over again, what's really cool is you actually stick with the things that get you the results you want. And again, this is across every area in life.
And things get way easier over time of doing things like that.
I think what keeps people from doing this consistently is a lack of consequences. We've become, our standard for health is very low in the United States, okay? So when you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, you're perfectly healthy, like, that's working against you, right? Because the standard isn't really one of your own.
Yeah.
And I think that's an opportunity, is for every person to decide, like, what are the standards I have for myself? What are the daily behaviors that are a representation of that? And then how can I honor that commitment consistently? Precision Nutrition, who's done a ton of behavior change research, they always came back to like 90% compliance. 90% to somebody who has this perfection mindset could seem like a lot of space, right? They mess up, it's like, oh man, but it's only one mess up. But because of that, they will allow that to just keep going. As opposed to like, no, that's one mess up this week. If I mess up one next week and one next week, I'm probably still 90% compliant to everything.
Yeah. Which compared to where you were, I mean,
yeah, it's a
I would
huge
say
step,
that's
right?
a huge step forward.
Going from 30% compliant to 90 is a win. And the only way that people don't see that is if they have this perfection standard. And you'll hear people say it, and the way they say it tells you exactly how strong they believe it. They'll say, I'm just a perfectionist. That's an identity statement. That's who I am. So what happens when you do something that's not in line with that? You feel like not yourself, right? So anytime it's an unwinnable game, right? It's impossible to be perfect. So if you set this up in your mind that way, it creates a lot of headaches. And I think there is a perceived significance that comes with saying that. Like, what you're really saying is like, I'm somebody that puts a lot of thought and attention into details and things, right? And I think that definition can be extrapolated into a body composition transformation. But there's this perfection standard can become a trap for a lot of people. So one of the other benefits of this challenge is that we run them multiple times throughout the year. So we don't run a 52-week challenge for you to be perfect.
Yeah.
We run 3 to 4 of these a year, strategically spaced out. The challenges are 6 weeks long. And what we know is that usually for about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, people keep it together pretty good. At least the sensible people. Some people go bananas at the end of a challenge, which we advise heavily against.
Yeah.
But the sensible people, they usually stay pretty dialed in for another 2.5 weeks. Okay? And then there's kind of a slow trickle. So that's 8.5-ish weeks. We'll just say 8 for easy math per challenge. So if we do 4 a year and you do all 4 challenges, that's 32 weeks of the year where you are dialed in and locked in. And even if you don't do all 4, let's say you do 3, the math is still pretty persuasive, okay? So if we can get you focused for 32 out of 52 weeks of the year where you're really, really dialed in, I would suggest that those other 20 weeks are still going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Because as you do this over and over and over, you get more traction on your habits and on your behaviors. And that walking 10,000 steps now is a whole lot easier to do than it was before.
So many of our members now that I remember our first challenge were like struggling with that. Now it's like a challenge for them every day. Like there's a sense of pride for them. Oh, I got my 10K again today. Got it before noon. Blah blah.
Yeah, it's that becoming, right? Like you're becoming the type of person that builds that into your life.
Yeah. And you can just see a difference in a lot of those people over the years that we've. Because I mean, how many years was it now that we've done our first? Was it 3?
I'm
maybe
pretty sure
when
it's
we
3.
did our first New Year's challenge.
Yep,
with
I think it's 3.
With the at least a 42 strong, the New Year, New You. Like
well, we didn't know. This might only be the second year of. I don't know.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. We just kind of show up and do the thing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but on that note, the black cards.
Yeah.
So we talked big about accountability. I know that's big for us, our team, our members, and everything like that. So I think that's something that anyone doing the challenge should definitely take advantage of, whether it be a family member or a friend, someone that you think would see some value in what we do, and someone that you could train with and help keep you accountable. Maybe they're in your household, maybe they're not.
Well, and on that note, choose somebody who is as serious as you.
Yeah.
Right? Like we've had people do this together before who are enablers to a degree of each other, right? Yeah. And they kind of joke with each other so much about how they can't be consistent that
almost
becomes
to the point
prophetic.
Where they kind of sabotage each other.
They do.
And maybe not like fully intentionally, but I think you go back long ways with a friend, you're like, oh, hop in on this challenge with me. And you'll just, sometimes that can be good and sometimes it cannot be.
You want to make sure that their intention is in line with yours. So if you are ready to transform your body and health, you have an opportunity to do this by joining the challenge. And you also have an opportunity to bring a friend or a family member with you for free. I mean, technically, you guys could split the cost of the challenge or whatever, but we've looked at it as a way for us to kind of pay it forward and give a gift to somebody who will do this with you. Now, you are running the risk of if you give it to them for free, they're not financially invested. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that, how like actually paying for things gives you a better outcome because you're more committed. You've got skin in the game. But if a friend hands you a card that, it's worth, $400, $500, I would hope they take that very serious. Mm-hmm. And so selecting your person is valuable. Mm-hmm. And if you've got somebody that, is counting on you outside of your coach and the other people that are at the gym, I strongly believe it helps get better results. I mean, like me, Maddie, Verm, a couple friends of mine, we're all doing like carnivore month, and it's just, it helps to have people that you're doing these things with. Mm-hmm. So I think these challenges, the way we do them, are one of the more instrumental components of getting results for our clients. And again, years ago, until we figured out how to do this in alignment with our values, I really didn't like the idea of short-term commitment programs like that. I only wanted people, like, you're going to commit to 12 weeks or a year, because I know that's how long I really need with you to make a change. But these challenges also do afford us the opportunity to get people a lot of results up front immediately.
And I think educate them to a degree too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like for future topics that we'll talk about on the podcast, like some of the myths we talk about, all the misinformation going around on the internet, like a lot of people are confused on like time frames and what it takes to have certain transformations and all that. So I think we do a really good job between the orientation and all the way through of educating people on what this process really takes, and at least giving them a better perspective on the whole realm of this. So
it's a really hard thing to do. Like, it's the average consumer right now trying to understand fitness and health is a victim to their own search history and who they follow. So these algorithms will feed you the same things over again, but the problem with that is that does not mean that information is true and unbiased. So then you end up in kind of this like echo chamber of all bad information. So it's a really challenging thing for people to sort through. Mm-hmm. And I think what we're attempting to do is simplify everything in fitness in a way that anybody can understand it, and get rid of all the clutter around it, and just talk about the most important things. And if you can get people just focused on moving more outside of the gym, moving in the gym, sleeping, eating whole, good processed foods, and not overeating, and then sleeping or drinking water, whichever one I forgot there. If you can just get them to do those things consistently, it is absolutely amazing what happens.
And it's not that difficult of a process. It's just more so the redundance of the simplicity of those daily habits that people don't tend to want to buy into.
Yeah, we don't want to believe
What's this extra steps? What's this extra water? Yeah. Think of it like it's stuff you don't normally do. If you're not normally walking, like we love the term, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yep.
You're sitting at the house, you're averaging 2,000 steps a day, you pay no attention to the food you have, but you're upset you're not getting results. How often are you at the gym? Like, something needs to change. You need to do more of your daily steps. You need to drink more of your water. And that's what I like so much about our challenges. It's more or less training you what you need to do on a daily basis to reach the results that you've wanted.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is like by way of you being compliant to these 5 rules every day, you're getting healthier and you're building them into your life. And the more challenges you do, the stickier this stuff will get. And then the one component we didn't talk about is the fact that we actually make people read. And again, this is a big one, right?
I'll tell you, some of the feedback I've gotten from the books that we've provided, not only from like the clients that have done it, I've given them to my sisters, my mom, and even myself. Like, those books are fantastic.
Life-changing, right? Like, there's some quote that it's like, if you don't read, it's just as bad as not being able to read. And that was like, wow. And I've heard other quotes like, if you ever wanted to hide information from this generation, this younger generation, just put it in a book. They'll never find it. So it's like reading is something that people don't seem to want to do a lot of. I think technology has really impacted people's attention spans. Everybody has ADHD these days to a degree. And to be clear, I'm one of those kids that was diagnosed with severe ADHD. That's why I read 4 to 5 books at a time, because it's hard for me to just focus on one. But I focus on the exact thing that I tell everybody to do here. I read 5 to 10 pages 3 to 4 times a day. And that gets me through 3 to 5 books a month, plus books I listen to. And that level of immersion allows you to acquire information that other people won't. So when you're participating inside of something that's about being uncomfortable and the benefits of that, the challenge itself, and then you're reading a book that reinforces the benefits of that, that's another really valuable component to that. And I know we haven't made a decision yet. I think we halfway did, but I'm going to challenge you guys on it because I'm about halfway through the book. The 2 books that we're considering, one is called Scarcity Brain. It's about habit development. It's also written by Michael Easter, the guy that wrote Comfort Crisis. And then Steve Magnus wrote a book called Do Hard Things. And that's another really good book. We've been sticking with the habits theme, and I think Scarcity Brain plays to that a little bit better, but I can't think of a negative with Do More Hard Things. I just want to talk as a staff about it.
Yeah.
But those books are really valuable. And just reading about the right stuff matters too. So one other point that might be valuable for those of you listening is reading about fitness always has a lean, right? They're bending you towards a certain direction. Polarity sells. So people are always trying to create these like very polarizing topics. What I want you to think about is that fitness topics are not what actually will create the change. It's not the perfect workout. It's not the perfect diet. A large part of it is behavior change. Understanding psychology and behavior change and why you make the decisions that you do. So I think reading things that aren't fitnessy, that are about behavior change, habit development, that's a superpower. Because so many people try to use looking good in their outfit or feeling good working out as the leverage. And in my experience, been doing this a really long time, that's not always there. We need all the tools that I've developed psychologically have helped me a lot stay consistent in the gym and really prioritize the things that matter most to me. I want you to think about this. This is kind of wild, and we'll shut this down here in a minute because I could rant about this for a long time. But cognitive biases are fascinating to me. Like, I want you to think about how many people in our gym, they know they need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Okay, they know it. But they are unable to design their life in a way that allows them to do that. How many of our members know that overeating, let's just say overeating, eating out, because you could overeat on lettuce for God's sake, but like everybody knows that overeating leads to non-optimal outcomes, gaining weight, not feeling good. But the vast majority of people still struggle to control their appetite in certain situations and scenarios, even though we know better. And that's because of these cognitive biases and distortions that humans create. And that's part of being a human. But I don't want to be a victim to them. And I don't want our clients to be a victim to those biases, because then you will start to create narratives and stories to back yourself up. Like, oh, that diet didn't work. It's like, no, the diet always works. Like it always, I don't care if it's the cabbage soup diet, a paleo diet, like the diet always works. It's, did you work the diet? Now there's, some are better than others, and there's always, contextual differences. But I think that's important for people to understand, is that your brain, by design, is set up to make everything easier for you. So when you step into something challenging, your amygdala, which is the part of your brain that's always scanning for threats, is on fire, going, yo, like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I joked yesterday, because I was doing carnivore yesterday, or this whole month, and I wanted so bad to go get a protein bar for no reason. I didn't even really want the protein bar. But I'm so habituated into getting a protein bar that I wanted to go do it. And that's a small example of what people will deal with. They would rather and I'm not saying this in a judgmental way. It's just the facts.
It's human nature.
It's human nature. They'd rather sit on the couch than walk another 2,000 steps.
Yeah.
They would rather eat something easy and convenient that's in the cabinet than cooking something, right? So all of us are this way. Just some people have a better handle over that aspect of their psychology than others. And I believe the overarching thing that you have to accept, and we talk about this in the challenge, is you have to have a growth mindset. You have to believe that you can do these things. A fixed mindset is, I'm just not the type of person that can wake up early. And you actually believe
one of the biggest points right there is just being open and willing for that growth. Because I know that's something that you talk on just about every single orientation is fixed first growth mindset. Because, like, again, what I said earlier, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Like, if you're not willing to eat this instead of all the convenient things, then are those results really that important to you?
Yeah. This is what's fascinating. Those results can be so important to somebody, but they have a pattern of the way they deal with their wants and desires that will never get them there.
Yeah.
But if they can step back away from that and go, okay, I see what I'm doing. I call it like being an observer of your behavior. I see what I'm doing there. Okay, now, consciously, will that get me the outcome that I want? No. Okay, is there a better choice available to me right now? The answer is always yes. And then you just have to make it.
Yeah.
But again, it's that period between stimulus and reaction. So when we're stimulated to make a choice that's not congruent with our health and fitness goals, we have space before we react. That time, though, for a lot of people, like, collapses really fast.
Yeah.
And they just kind of do the thing. As opposed to, like, well, what if when you had that feeling you did something really simple, like just take 3 breaths.
Take a breath, ask a question.
And ask yourself a question.
Like, it's that simple.
And you will get an answer.
Don't just let emotion send you right down one road. Like, I tell you, that's one powerful thing I've learned through meditation is just take a breath. Take a breath, and then all of a sudden, like, things will start to calm down. Once the emotion kind of dials down with whatever the given situation is, you're able to make a rational decision.
You are.
So, no, I dig all that.
Yeah, 3 big breaths is a cheat code to getting your brain back.
Bring up the blood pressure story from remember the doctor that you talked about? I don't know, you told me this story about a year or so ago, that you went into the doctor,
and I had him go out of the room. And I can't remember what that was
That's
for.
The power
either.
of breath.
But and I don't remember what it was, but I remember that I was really kind of fired up for some reason, and I was going to a doctor for the hormone replacement therapy that it was. I remember it was Quick Care, and this was back when I used to go there. I'm not advising anybody to go to Quick Care, by the way. And the doctor came in and he did my blood pressure, and it was really high. My resting heart rate was high. And he was like, man, is that abnormal? I was like, yeah, it actually is. I was like, give me a couple minutes. Like, let's play a game here. So he leaves, he comes back in, and all I did was sit upright tall, and I focused on box breathing. Inhale through my nose for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, hold it for 4, and repeat. And when he came back in, my blood pressure was exactly where it was supposed to be, and my resting heart rate had dropped like 8 beats per minute.
That's in the matter of
a couple minutes. Couple minutes. I mean, your breath is one of the more powerful things you have available. I mean, that deserves its own podcast.
I have that written in the notebook too.
When you realize what you can do with your breath, it's unbelievable. You can create energy. You can calm yourself down. You can create more focus. It's really wild. It's really wild.
We'll save that rabbit hole for another day.
Yeah, for sure.
Or anything else on that, really?
I think that's good. I mean, I hope everybody uses this to help them set a goal and focus for 2024. I hope you enroll in the challenge. Shameless plug again. I want to convince you to do this because I believe in how powerful it is for you and your health and fitness.
Yeah.
So,
just remember, progress, not perfection. This time of year, everyone puts pressure to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. All right. You hear Andy talk about some of the coaches doing specific, the carnivore and stuff like that. Like, everyone's doing different things with different people to keep them accountable, and just don't set perfect as the standard, because that ain't never going to happen. All right. But aside from that, I really hope y'all take up the offer to get in on this challenge, and you have between now and the 13th The 13th of January is orientation. Kickoff will be day 1 on the 15th. So if you got any friends, family members, someone that you think is a good fit for you and in line with you to do the +1 deal, come on with it. Come one, come all. We're
right.
ready to help anyone that is ready to make some changes.
Yes, sir. See you guys next week.
Yes, sir. Peace and love.